Started yesterday the book of Vayikra, Torah Kohanim, and we'll continue with some different ideas as we go into the Parsha. In second chapter in Perek Bet, we get to the Karban Mincha. There are different types of karbanot, various different types. What's one of the things that's different about the Karban Mincha is that it doesn't have an animal. There is no. It's not a bird. An ox. It's not a goat. It is just flour, oil, frankincense, and there are a statement in Chazal that talks about it as being like the poor person's offering, and it's the poor person in a sense is offering their soul. They're offering their sense. Why? Because flour. Think about bread. We think bread less so today, especially with every third person being gluten free. But flour is a basic survival food. You're giving what you live on. So first you have the animal offerings to start off in Sefer Vayikra. And then we have here the meal offering, the flour offering, the karban mincha, and spiritual value isn't measured by price,
You want to get in there?
but by relative to the giver is what the sacrifice is about, and so it becomes an important. It's interesting to think about it in that way. Other things about it, the sacrifice, it is not allowed to have chametz, and it's not allowed to have dvash. It's not allowed to have honey. The two of those things um, are not allowed. And if we think about it, right? Chametz, we know it's only little. Is it 2 weeks and a day till Pesach? Got to figure out if I'm going to make it to the Holy Land. So, right, the Torah forbids chametz. You don't allow dvash. Chametz is the idea of arrogance, ego, inflation. Right, chametz is the idea of something that rises. That's one of the ways of understanding chametz. There's a Gemara in Masechet Brachot that talks about that chametz is it's like the Yetzer Hara, right? Something that's overinflated, arrogant, ego, something that's growing and growing. And honey, you can look at as overly sweetening something. You can almost look at it as like artificial spirituality, right? A person, you want to drink your tea, what do you have to put honey in it? If you like the tea, you don't need to have it. You don't have to add the honey, even though maybe all of us do that in our other ways. But another idea we can share that true avodah isn't puffed up. It isn't ego driven. It isn't overly sweet. It isn't easy. It has to be grounded. It has to be real. Sometimes it's even a little sharp. It's not super sweet. So no chametz, no dvash. It's a philosophy in a sense of extremes. One could say we're not going to allow these other items in it. By the way, I didn't read to you, but that's from pasuk Yud Aleph here in Perek Bet. Let me read you the pasuk. Kol mincha asher takrivu laHashem lo teaseh chametz ki chol soor v'chol dvash lo taktiru mimenu ishe ladonai. No grain offering shall be made with leaven, for leaven or honey may be turned into smoke as an offering by fire to God. Obviously, these rationales and reasons are not given in the psukim in the Torah, but the sort of a little bit of a try to understand as to why it might be that those things are not part of the offering. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Let's keep going. Now we have another verse which talks about what you are not just supposed to, or on some offerings you should put on, but talks about how on every offering you need salt. You need melach, al kol karbanecha takriv melach. On every offering, there needs to be salt upon the offering, and we see this regularly on Shabbat when you make your motzi and you eat from your challah. You put salt on it. It's part of the greater idea that the rabbis had with the destruction of the Beit Hamikdash. Our homes became sort of a mikdash ma'at. They became like a small temple, and the phrase, for example, shulchan k'mizbeach, your table is like the altar. And you think of Friday night dinner, there was chalot with salt. You wash your hands before it, like the Kohanim would wash their hands in the kior to make sure that they are holy. We have wine, we have meat, things that were in the temple in the Beit Hamikdash. There's a custom, of course, of singing, or minhag of zmirot, of singing songs, in the same way that the Leviim would sing songs. So the idea of having the salt is part of this general idea of taking the stuff from the temple, from the Beit Hamikdash. We don't have a temple anymore. Our own homes have to be, in a sense, those temples. I'll call Karbanecha Takriv Melach. But something also about just the details of salt. Why then? So we do it today, as we're pointing out, but why then was salt so important? Salt is something that preserves. It doesn't change flavor, some might say. It reveals the flavor. Salt is part of a Brit Melach, a covenant that lasts, and part of the idea that in religious life we need consistency, we need durability. It needs to be something that lasts the lifetime. Without salt, even sort of spiritual salt sort of allows things to not spoil if things don't have this idea of salt, this idea of something that's preserving. Now, we're not talking about artificial preservatives that the cake you buy in the grocery store will last for a month. That might not be so good, but the idea of the Brit Melach is something that lasts, something that remains. And think about things in life of what is important are things that remain. You make a commitment to something that you are invested in, something that you love, a person who you love, ideas that are important to you. That's the idea. So al karbanecha takriv melach. You want to have a karban, and remember karov, coming close to God, takriv melach. It has to be with something that's long lasting. It's very easy to go through for the new fads and the new fades, and something that seems attractive for a day or a week or a month or a year or even a decade. But Judaism is religion that's 3,500 years old. It has to have eternal truths. It has to have ideas in it that improve life, improve who we are, have real meaning to it. And so if you want to come close to God, it has that Brit Melach, this thing that Melach, that is it's a preservative. It's not changing the flavor. Now, something else that's interesting about the grain offerings is that many of them were then broken into pieces. What was done to many of the offerings, and we think about it, right? When we talk about an animal, the animal was sacrificed. The animal was a whole animal, right? You didn't bring a half an animal. Now, parts of the animal were cut up. Some were completely I don't know, baked. They were completely burned up on the altar, korban olah. Other ones, the owner ate some from. Other ones, the owner ate some from, and the kohanim ate some from. That's the korban shlamim. But here, with a korban mincha, they're broken pieces. The offering almost is like it's sort of fragmented. And one way sort of understanding is that as the poor person doesn't give a complete grand gesture, doesn't have the money to give. But what do? They give pieces, they give bits over time, yet the Torah treats it as a full korban. And you think about it with karbanot, partial and imperfect offerings are still fully accepted. And we think about it also just in life in general. You don't always have the ability to give it all at once. And whether it be in religious life or whatever area it is, you perfect things. You get a little bit better, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. You offer a little bit more and more every time. So we have, in a sense, it's broken pieces. They're baked, it's broken into pieces. So, right, it's a complete offering, even if you can give it all at once. Okay. Now, other things with this carbon. So there's oil, shemen, and there's livona, frankincense, and carbon mincha. Right, it's not just going to be all flour. Anybody here who tried to bake, even if it's just a Duncan Hines cake, right? You need to put the oil in, you need to put the eggs in, right? So here you have the shemen is placed into the oil, and the frankincense, the livona, is placed on top. Oil is absorbed within. The frankincense, which is visible, is fragrant, and it's something that's external. It's placed on the top. And we think of, right, this is avodah. Korbanot or avodah is service of God. And service of God, or just generally, service has two dimensions. It has the inner sincerity, that which is absorbed, but it also has the outer expression. Now, the outer expression sometimes for some people is very, very showy. It's not supposed to be very, very showy, but both are necessary and they play different roles. Our inner sincerity and the outer expression. We know that generally, right, the outer expression is not so important. The inner sincerity is much, much more important, but outer expression is important also in terms of the way you show yourself to the world, the way you react to people, the way you speak to people, the way you approach people, and the way you approach religion, right? The outer expression can be something it's outer, but it can still be done in a way with humility and kindness and decency, that not the way of it being arrogant and showy. And so both are necessary. Yes, the inner sincerity is probably the most important part, like we talked about yesterday. Adam kima yakriv mikem, when you offer the sacrifice from yourself. But the outer expression is important also. Again, it doesn't have to be showy, but there's going to be the shemen and the livona. Now, part of the mincha is burnt on the mizbeach, and the rest of it is eaten by the kohanim. So, what we have here is something that's important again in Jewish life, and we have different type of korbanot. There is again, like I said, the korban olah, where it is completely consumed on the altar. But Judaism is a religion of bein adam lechavero, bein adam lemakom. So the korbanot can't just be gifts to God. It can't just be vertical. Judaism, true avodah, is not just God directed. It has to be God directed, horizontal, as well, vertical, as opposed to, I don't know if you can see my hand that's going up or to the side, it has to be vertical towards God, but it also has to be horizontal. If your avodah is all just vertical towards God and you are, we'll just say, not a decent person, then you are not doing things wrong. Things like visiting the sick and feeding others and sustaining community and showing kindness and reaching out to other people. The gift can't just be to God, it has to be both ways. It has to be both the vertical and the and the horizontal. One last idea for the day, right? We're talking today really much more about the carbon mincha, the flour offering, versus sort of the animal offerings that we think of more often, the karbanot, the oxen, right? The carbon pesach, which the lamb. And so if we think about it, animals, raw, natural life. Flour, on the other hand, is heavily processed, right? You take it, you have to create the flour, you have to make the dough, right? It's planted, it's harvested, it's grounded, it's sifted. It's a lengthy process. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I'm not talking about putting in preservatives, but it's still a human process. The mincha much more represents the human partnership in creation. It's not just offering that which exists, it's offering what we've developed, which in a sense is much more of a Jewish idea. Judaism is a religion of partnership with God. It's not a religion where God simply saves us. It's not here's my hand going up vertical and horizontal. It's not just religion where God simply saves us. It's not just a religion where we are obedient. It's a religion of partnership. It's a religion where God stops on the seventh day and says to man, the eighth day, now you are in charge. Talked about the word for God, Shaddai, El Shaddai, the God who said die, the God who said enough. I've done my part of creation. The rest rest is up to you. God comes to Avraham, says, I'm going to destroy Sodom, seemingly hoping to elicit an answer from Avraham, even though Avraham ultimately is unable to convince God not to destroy Sodom. We have Moshe, of course, who does convince God when God wants to destroy the Jewish people, not to destroy the Jewish people, but to let it last. So we have here, sorry, my wife is calling me, the idea here, we have sort of animal sacrifices and flour offerings, meal sacrifices. And to think about it, we sort of mentioned the Rambam yesterday has a number of different ideas of sacrifices. But the Rambam, one of his probably most famous idea in the Guide for Perplexed is that sacrifices were sort of a vestige of the time and of the past. We've moved beyond that. Today we have prayer, unishalma parim svatenu. Instead of having the ox, instead of having bringing the cow, we will have our lips. And so here too, in a sense, we're moving in that way. If we're moving from animal sacrifices to flour offerings, FLOUR, to something that's developed, something that's processed, something that shows that we are not just children anymore, but a partnership between man and God.